What's going on, guys? Welcome to Mooseworks. Today we're going to be working on a bench sander tool rest. We're going to be replacing this little weak freaking pencil neck platform work rest because it's wonky, it can't keep a 90, and it's just tiny. So I have this telescoping tube that I have all cut up. In part one, which I'll put a link in the description of this video, I cut these pieces out of some scrap metal. I mounted it up here and got it ready. Now we just need to go ahead and tack this in. We need to come up with some arm system for the actual work rest platform on the bench sander, and then square everything up and get it all welded up. So this is part two. Go see part one. Let's go. So I just replaced this regulator. Whenever I was moving this welder around to build this cart, I left it plugged in. I ended up pulling it down, hitting the top. Thank goodness this whole thing didn't break off. It was just the regulator here. You can kind of see where I smashed it, and it broke it off right here. Luckily, that was all, so I had to replace this. Anyways, I replaced it with an Olsen from Harbor Freight. And it looks like this system holds air really well. It has the same pressures inside the hose line as well as the tank on these regulators as 2 days ago, which is crazy. Usually it bleeds off a little bit. We got it plugged in. One of the things that we determined in part one is that my adjustment here where this bolt locks it down, I have one at the bottom and at the top here. This needs to be on the bottom to make sure my work rest is 90 to the bench sander that this work rest is going to be used for. So let's take that out. Let's take that out. And let's get this switched. So we want it to be 90 like this. So I'm going to hit this edge with a grinder to get it prepped for welding. Now all I'm using this plate for is to make sure I mount it up flush with this plate. I'm going to push this back about this far. Well, let's go a little bit farther. Okay. So I put it roughly to where it was flush here. On the front side, I need it to go in at least to the point of the unit. Let's take a look at this. So this upright really can only go to about, so I'll take you over to the bench sander. So this hole right here is gonna hit this plastic on the back side. So if we take the front of that telescoping tube and line it up with that hole for that upright to come up, I think we'll be good. Although it's going to stick out quite a bit further than that because the plate's going to be sticking out. So I think if we push it back, very rarely are we going to be coming out farther than what is needed. We're just going to be pushing it in farther because of that 45 that sander can rotate there. So I think we're good here. Again, it's going to be sitting more somewhere around right here, coming off for that plate to extend out. Okay, we're good to go. Let's tack this up. So we're going to be welding. This is probably about 1/4 inch thick, if that. All right, so we're at 0.1875. So the big main plate is 1/2 inch. This is about 3/16 f 5.5, baby. Let's just check the squareness of this real quick before we tack it. All right, she's good. Oh yeah. Nothing like welding early in the morning. She's welded on. She's solid. There's two positions we really need to make sure and we can we can achieve. So it's going to be this outside position where it's the main working rest position, and then it's going to be the fully inside position where it's the 45 or even a little bit steeper. I think at this point it doesn't really matter where the bench sander sits. Let's put one more tack here just to make sure this is solid. I mean, these were substantial tacks, but let's put one more tack, make sure everything is in sufficiently. And let's put the bench sander on here and start mounting the arm. Now this is, the telescoping portion is about 2 inch by 2 inch. And I think I have a 2-inch square tubing over here. Yep, it's really heavy duty. All right, a little bit more than a normal tack, but there. Okay, so I have this piece of 2x2 square tubing. The inside's pretty rusty there. I'm gonna blow it out, but it should be good. It's 1/4 inch wall, so it should never go bad. It's definitely heavy enough for what I want to do on this project. So this is about where it's gonna sit. There's the farthest in position it could go. I mean, that's more than plenty right there. So I think what we're gonna have to do is put it to where the bottom of this, because the plate's gonna go just on top of this. The bottom of this is just a hair over where this rest is gonna land. I'm gonna make a mark. So when this is about 90, that line is about where this lands. So here's the plate I'm gonna use. And I'm probably gonna cut it down quite a bit. Looks good. So the top of our rec tube to the bottom of our plate needs to be exactly 13 inches. That'll get us right above this plastic piece on the bottom side of that edge. All right. So I'm gonna be using the Fireball square to get my 90 on this project. I think it's probably best to use these two faces. All right, so let's pull our 90, mark it with a pencil. I guess some chalk. Let's pull our 90 and mark it with a pencil. So we said 13 inches to the top. So I can put a, let me bring it a little bit closer here. So I'm going to cut this 2x2 at 16 inches. That's going to put this about 1 inch up. That's going to allow me to put a fillet weld on the top and the bottom. Keep things kind of symmetric, and it'll extend down a little bit. Not a problem. I'm going to square up this edge with the evolution saw and then cut it off here. Then we'll use the fireball tool. That's probably pretty loud. Then we'll use the fireball tool to make sure these two are square to each other. Not forgetting where my holes need to be. This is making this come up a little bit, so we need to make sure and use some 3-2-1 blocks. Yep, let's go. Not sure why the inside of this tube is so rusted out and nasty, but it's bad. Might have helped a little bit. One of the joys of working with metal. Let's go ahead and clean the edges of that up. Gotta clean our workbench off here. Make sure we're working with a flat surface. It's a key thing right there. There's our top surface. So the top of this telescoping tube needs to be lined up with that to put this at 13 inches just above the plastic piece. Theoretically, using the fireball tool, you don't need 3-2-1 blocks, but just to be safe. Okay. All right, so we got this at 13 inches. Let's get this bad boy moved over. Alrighty, everything is square. All edges are meeting up. Let's weld this bad boy up. So my one 2x square is 3/16. The other one is 1/4 inch. So what I'm using is a letter setting of E for your wire speed, and then your voltage is going to be set at 5. E5. So first thing I'm going to do is tack all 4 corners, undo the clamps, check the square, and then we're going to go ahead and just weld it up. Square, square, just a flush. And square. Let me get a bigger one. And square. Outstanding. All right, now before we weld that up, let's put it in our setup here. Just as a quick check, make sure nothing's interfering, and it's gonna work out as expected. Boom diggity. Yep, it's just a hair under that. There's a little bit of slop there. Let's tighten it up. Takes that out. Now one thing I'm noticing is how this sits relative to that. It's definitely not square. So we're gonna have to fix that. When we put the plate up here, we're gonna have to make sure and fit it up perfect to this, because this is definitely off relative. I don't think it has to do with how square it is. I think it has to do with the roll of this, like I was talking about, but we'll get it figured out. All right, so let's finish this video out with welding this up, and then we're gonna pull that plate over here and get a shape kind of drawn out. There you go. Let's let that cool down. Let's grab the plate. Let's grab the work rest plate and draw up what the shape's gonna look like. All right, so I really don't need it to be this deep. How deep is that? Probably only need it to be about 7 inches. Let's see where we're off this. So this is already somewhat cleaned up. Let's see what the backside looks like. It's cleaned up as well. I think the end of this was used for my vertical bandsaw. So let's do it at 7 inches, and we're gonna have a bit of a, 7 inches. We're gonna have, I'll go measure it. Gonna cut this piece off. And then there's gonna be a little bit of a slot right there. So it's gonna need to be 6 3/4 of an inch. And this is 10 3/4. So 10.75 minus 6.75. Obviously is 4. That's going to leave 2 inches on either side. So it's going to be a pretty substantial slot here, not a small one. 2 inches. How far? Let's do it an inch. 1 inch. Man, I'm thinking about making this one larger than like 9 inches. Then should I just go up to 1.5? Yeah, let's do that. Bigger is better. You can always cut more off. So let's do 1.5 inches. Let's, I don't know how you erase leather glove. That worked. All right. So instead, we're going to take that at 9 inches. All right, there it is. This is going to be our platform work rest. We're going to weld that onto the telescoping tube, and it should be a lot better than the current little tiny aluminum rest, work rest. All right, guys, that's all it is for this morning. So part 3, we're going to be cutting out the work rest and welding that on square. And then hopefully that's the end of the project and we get the stand and this work rest all cleaned up and painted. But it might have to extend into 4. Like, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and go out there and weld something. Let's go.